Every choice we make, big or small, what we buy, how we treat people, the paths we take in life, it feels like there's something deep down guiding us, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's like this internal compass. And often we're not even fully aware it's steering the ship, so to speak.
Exactly. So today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly that, the pillars of human values and their impact. We want to explore how these fundamental principles shape us, but also, how they shape our societies, even global events.
It's a huge topic, really fundamental.
It really is. And our mission here is to basically pull out the key insights from the source material you've given us. Think of it as a shortcut to understanding what values are, why they're just so essential, and how they actually play out in the real world. We've got some fascinating examples lined up.
Yeah, the source is surprisingly comprehensive. Lots of aha moments in there.
Okay, let's unpack this then. We've got this single, really insightful source that lays out the groundwork.
And what's truly fascinating, I think, is just how deeply values are woven into our decisions, into our societies, even if we don't always talk about them explicitly. This deep dive should help us connect those dots.
See their impact more clearly.
Yeah.
So let's start right at the beginning. What exactly are values? How does our source define them?
Well, it starts by defining them as these fundamental standards or rules or regulations of behavior. They're crucial in shaping our lives and guiding how we interact with each other.
So the bedrock principles.
Pretty much. And the word itself, value, it comes from the Latin valere.
Valere, what does that mean?
It means to be of worth or to be strong or even something that has a price. So it implies this inherent worth beyond just money.
Ah, okay. So it's about what things mean to us, what we genuinely cherish.
Yeah.
Like the philosopher Dewey said, right? To value something is to prize it, esteem it.
Cherish it, appraise it. Exactly. It's about that deeply felt importance.
And Milton Rokeach had a definition too, didn't he? More specific.
Yes, he called a value an enduring belief. Basically, a specific code of conduct that we see as personally or socially preferable. It's about what we believe should be, a guiding conviction.
Okay, that helps. Now, one thing that often trips people up, and our source clarifies this, is the difference between values and, say, beliefs. How are they distinct?
That's a really important distinction. Values are more general, overarching principles. They're really stable, like your core compass. Beliefs, on the other hand, are more specific.
Right.
They're internal feelings that something is true, maybe unproven, and they can actually change. New information comes along, new experiences. Beliefs can shift.
So, like, honesty is a value, but all dogs are friendly is a belief that could change if you meet a grumpy one.
Exactly. The value of honesty is probably quite fixed for you, but your belief about dogs might adapt. That shows why values feel more foundational.
Makes sense. And what about values versus attitudes? We hear those linked a lot too.
Similar distinction, really. Values are those deep, stable principles. Attitudes are much more situational. They're like tendencies to respond positively or negatively to specific things, ideas, people, situations.
Okay.
They're formed through social interactions, experiences, and you express them through opinions, reactions. So respect for elders might be a value. Your specific positive or negative feeling about a particular new policy affecting elders. That's more of an attitude.
So attitudes can reflect values, but they aren't the values themselves.
Precisely. They're connected, but different levels.
That clears things up nicely. Okay, so we know what values are, but why are they so critical? Why indispensable? The source really emphasizes their power.
It really does. It says values give strength to our character and, crucially, direction to our lives. They're the unseen influence on our thoughts, feelings, actions, decisions, everything.
And here's the part I found really profound. It's not just about knowing right from wrong intellectually.
No, not at all.
Values are what push us to actually do the right thing, and maybe even harder, pull back from the wrong thing.
Right, that internal drive. The source uses that incredible quote from the Mahabharata with Duryodhana.
Oh yeah, that was powerful.
Yeah.
I know Dharma, but I'm not inspired to pursue it. I know it Dharma, but I can't withdraw from it.
It perfectly captures that gap, that struggle between knowing and doing that values help us bridge. It's that moral muscle.
Moral muscle, I like that. And the source gives examples, right? Basic inherent ones.
Yeah, things like truth, honesty, loyalty, love, peace. They're the real fundamentals. And then you see them at an organizational level too. Financial growth, teamwork, productivity. They define how groups operate.
And this is where it gets really interesting for me, seeing these values in action. Real people, making choices. The source mentions Simone Biles at the Paris Olympics.
Yes, it wasn't just her performance, which was obviously amazing. It was her reaction afterwards.
Right. Not winning gold, but genuinely celebrating the winner.
Yeah.
That says so much.
It really does. The source suggests it shows how a strong value system can actually redefine what success even means. It shifts focus from just the outcome to, well, your internal integrity.
It's less about the medal, more about the character.
Exactly. It reminds me of that Einstein quote the source included. Try not to become a man of success, but try to become a man of values. It's about building that foundation.
Such a powerful idea. And values aren't just personal, are they? They're absolutely vital in things like public administration, too.
Hugely important there. They define the expectations, the standards for public servants. Our source pulls out some great examples from India.
Like upholding the rule of law.
Definitely. The Indian Police Service, the IPS, their core function is enforcing law and order. That's a fundamental value in action.
And transparency, accountability.
Key values. The Right to Information Act, the RTI Act, is a perfect example. It empowers citizens to ask questions, hold authorities accountable, builds trust.
And social justice comes up, too.
Yes, through things like the MNRGA scheme, the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. Providing jobs for marginalized communities is a tangible commitment to fairness.
What about ethics and integrity in government?
Absolutely crucial. You have bodies like the Central Vigilance Commission, the CVC, working to prevent corruption. That's vital for public trust. And beyond that, there's this expectation of social responsibility that public servants work for the betterment of society.
And even innovation.
Yes, encouraging innovation and creativity in delivering services and making policy. It's about adapting and improving.
So connecting this to the bigger picture, these administrative values aren't just nice to haves. They're essential for trust, for making sure government actually serves people.
They really are, which leads to a pretty sobering question, doesn't it? What happens when these values are missing, when they're absent?
Yeah, that is a chilling question. And the source tackles it head on. It brings up Mahatma Gandhi's 7 deadly sins.
Ah, yes, wealth without work, pleasure without conscience.
Knowledge without character, commerce without morality, science without humanity, religion without sacrifice, politics without principles. It's a powerful list.
And sadly, we see examples. The source mentions the UPSC canceling a candidate, Pooja Kedkar, for using unethical means, or that investigation into unauthorized clinical trials.
At VS Hospital.
Right.
These aren't just isolated incidents. They signal a kind of erosion of values.
It reminds me of Benjamin Franklin's point, too, that a lot of misery comes from people making false estimates of the value of things. Prioritizing the wrong stuff leads to suffering.
And today, we face this imbalance, don't we, between old wisdom and new technology, especially things like war technology.
Absolutely. Atomic weapons, bioweapons. The source points out how knowledge explosion there threatens humanity itself. Even in economics, India's chief economic advisor warned businesses about AI fascination potentially overshadowing employment responsibilities. It's that science without humanity concern again.
And when values are absent, specifically in administration, the impact is devastating. Corruption, for instance.
Yeah, the source mentions things like the 2G spectrum scam or that recruitment scam in West Bengal schools where teaching jobs were allegedly sold. It's a betrayal of trust, misuse of funds.
And it leads directly to poor services.
Yeah.
Inefficiency.
Totally. Delays in building roads, bridges, or that example of millions of MGN-Reggie job cards being deleted without proper checks. That directly hurts people.
And it fuels inequality too, doesn't it, if vulnerable groups are neglected?
Definitely. Rural communities not getting the same level of service as urban ones.
Yeah.
It all stems from a lack of ethical grounding. And the result, erosion of trust.
You see it in things like deepfakes during elections. It's science without humanity in action. Or even, incredibly, a school principal stealing eggs meant for kids' meals.
It sounds almost unbelievable, but these things shatter public confidence. And ultimately, policies become ineffective. Funds are wasted. Progress stalls.
That story about the woman whose acquittal was delayed 2 years by a clerk's inaction? It's just heartbreaking. A direct consequence of values breaking down.
And the source ties this into what it calls a crisis of ethical values, often linked to this really narrow view of the good life as just material wealth.
Focused on self-interest, not the common good.
Exactly. And you see this decay across different fields. Medicine, profit sometimes put ahead of patients, leading to maybe unnecessary procedures.
Sports. Doping for fame, like this Shahid Afridi example. Integrity sacrificed for the win.
Journalism. Truth taking a backseat to sensationalism and ratings, especially with fake news. pharma, inflating prices on essential drugs like insulin, putting profit way above well-being.
It all points to this narrow focus, undermining character, undermining society. We need a broader vision.
We absolutely do. Which raises the question, if values are so vital, are they set in stone? Or do they change?
Our source is very clear on this. Values are not static. They're dynamic. They evolve with society. They're shaped by culture, conscience, beliefs, attitudes.
They're living things. And things like education, new tech, political conversations about justice, equality, the environment, these all drive changes in values.
And the source has that lovely line. The source of values is within a human being. The need is to look within.
Work on self, by myself, to improve the quality of my life. It's an internal journey, not just external forces.
And this evolution, it often causes friction, doesn't it? Generational conflicts.
Oh, absolutely. As values shift, say around gender equality, you often see resistance from older generations or parts of society holding on to traditional views.
We also see big differences between societies, right? Like long-term versus short-term focus.
Yes, Asian societies often emphasize future rewards, a long-term orientation. Many Western societies tend to prioritize more immediate gratification. Big difference in perspective.
And individualism versus collectivism.
Another key one. Western cultures often prioritizing personal goals, individual achievement. Many Asian cultures place a much higher value on group needs, collective harmony.
Gender roles, too. Huge variations. Compare somewhere like Pakistan with Sweden, for instance.
Exactly. And religious values play vastly different roles. Very central in Saudi Arabia, influencing laws like alcohol prohibition. Less central, perhaps, in the U.S., with more acceptance of diverse beliefs.
Even pop culture reflects these clashes. That India's Got Talent remarks sparking outrage about obscenity. It's all about clashing values and ethical lines.
It really highlights how values are constantly being negotiated, redefined in the public square.
Okay, so if values are so crucial and they evolve, how do we nurture them, especially in younger generations? The source had a pretty sharp critique of education system.
It did. That line, our education system is largely involved in educating the heads and hands and not the hearts. That hits hard.
Because education and values are inseparable, right? Two sides of the same coin.
Exactly. And the source even links the lack of value education to global problems, violence, terrorism, pollution, ecological imbalance. It suggests a connection there.
So what does effective value education actually look like? What does it mean?
It means actively inculcating concern for others, for the nation. It's a positive effort to bring together the physical, intellectual, emotional, aesthetic, moral, spiritual aspects of a person, whole person education.
And the impact. Why is it so important?
Well, it develops those sides, social, moral, aesthetic, spiritual, that often get sidelined in purely academic settings. It teaches appreciation for cultural heritage. It builds social responsibility.
Like encouraging community service, volunteering, making it part of learning.
Precisely. And crucially, it develops empathy, understanding how others feel. That story about the Brazilian handball player Frassard.
Carrying the injured opponent. Incredible moment.
That's empathy in action, isn't it? A product of deeply held values. It also encourages ethical behavior even when things get tough. And it prepares people for the future adaptability, problem solving, all grounded morally.
And that anecdote about Virat Kohli and Suresh Raina.
Oh, that was wonderful. Kohli revealing Raina's early help, and Raina having never bragged about it despite being a commentator. Speaks volumes about quiet integrity, doesn't it?
It really does. The source sounds almost optimistic about the potential. Transform a diseased mind into a very young, fresh, innocent, healthy mind.
It suggests a really profound transformative power. Healing, almost.
And there have been efforts in India to push this forward, right?
Yes, definitely. Gandhi's vision was foundational education for character, integrating head, heart, and hand. Later, the Ramamurthy Committee specifically recommended making value education integral.
And the more recent NEP 2020.
The new education policy strongly emphasizes integrating values across the curriculum. Holistic development, empathy, kindness, respect, includes it in teacher training, promotes community service, Indian culture.
Like Andhra Pradesh putting value education and gender equality into the school syllabus.
Exactly. Tangible steps. Plus other initiatives like Padna Likhna Abhiyan linking literacy and values, or Atal Tinkering Labs fostering innovation alongside teamwork and social responsibility.
Okay, so we're educating the heart.
Yeah.
But how do values actually operate inside us? The source gets into emotions, conscience, development.
Right, it makes this critical link. Emotions are the motive power behind intellect.
Motive power, how so?
Well, think about it. Virtuous emotions like compassion can drive intellect towards good, useful ends. But vicious emotions, envy, greed, can drive that same intellect towards destruction. Einstein warned about intellect being sharp on methods, but blind to ends and values.
And Russell said science isn't enough, right?
Yeah.
Passions distort our view.
Exactly. The Bhagavad Gita warns about desire, anger, greed being gateways to hell. Vivekananda said, the man of heart can never be a devil. It all points to the heart being as important as the head.
Cultivating positive values, managing negative emotions. It's crucial. Greed robs learned man of his wisdom.
Precisely, which leads us to these fascinating models of how we develop morally, how we internalize values.
Like Swami Dayanand's idea about inner conflict.
Yes, that example of lying for Rs500, your money value clashes with your truth value. It creates this internal discomfort, guilt. A knower-doer split, he called it. Knowing right, doing wrong, and feeling that dissonance inside.
In Kohlberg's stages of moral development. That maps it out, doesn't it?
It does, like a ladder. From a very basic pre-conventional level, stage 1, just avoiding punishment, all the way up to post-conventional principled levels.
Stage 6, where your conscience is guided by self-chosen, universal ethical principles. Not just laws or what others think.
Exactly. It shows this potential for growth in our moral reasoning. We're all somewhere on that path, hopefully moving upwards.
Maslow's hierarchy fits in here too, presumably.
Yes, from basic needs up to self-actualization. You see policies like the PM Vishwakarma Yojana aiming to meet artisans' basic needs, but also help them achieve self-actualization through dignified work. It's about creating the conditions for people to reach their potential, which includes their moral potential.
And Keegan's model of adult development. Orders of consciousness.
Another lens on growth, moving from being driven purely by impulse to fitting in socially, then developing your own internal compass, and finally being able to step back and see the limits of your own perspective, the self-transforming mind.
Wow. So these models aren't just theory. They show how we develop the capacity to live by our values. It's about growth, transformation.
It really is. It's not static.
Okay, let's bring this down to earth with some really complex situations. Applied ethics. The source uses an arms trade case study for Farad Missiles Ltd.
Right, a tough one. An arms exporter from a responsible country like India faces huge ethical hurdles. It's not just business.
What kind of hurdles?
Well, navigating assumptions about export bans, balancing personal interests against national ones, making absolutely sure the tech doesn't fall into enemy hands, maintaining quality, the security risks of transferring technology, preventing corruption. It's a minefield. And protecting India's image is paramount.
So what ethical factors should guide such a decision, according to the source?
It lists 5 key things. First, the importing country's commitment to peace and stability. Does it align with India's Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam world is one family outlook?
Makes sense. What else?
Second, the economic angle boosting manufacturing, creating jobs. That's an ethical consideration too, social and economic. Third is the importing country democratic. Does it have civilian rule? Thinking about the greater good.
Okay. Fourth.
The importer's human rights record. Absolutely crucial. You can't ignore how the buyer behaves.
And finally.
National interest, of course, but also those core values of objectivity and transparency in the deal itself, ensuring the export doesn't compromise these fundamentals.
It shows how complex these decisions are, layered with values. Climate change is another huge one the source tackles ethically.
Yes, moving beyond just the science. There's intergenerational justice, what we leave for future generations.
The massive ethical weight.
Huge. And environmental justice, the fact that low-income communities often suffer the worst impacts. Then there's responsibility tracing causes back, especially to industrialized nations.
And the risk of moral hazard, relying on tech fixes.
Exactly. Thinking geoengineering will solve it might make us complacent about actually cutting emissions. And finally, global cooperation. How do we fairly share the burden? Who pays? Who acts? Deep ethical questions.
So what are the guiding ethical principles here? Best practices.
Stewardship. Trusteeship, acting as caretakers for the future. Taking concrete action now for generations to come, ensuring impacts and benefits are distributed fairly. And importantly, acknowledging ownership, those who cause more of the problem have a greater responsibility to fix it.
It really reframes climate change as a profound moral challenge. The source also flags mental health as having ethical dimensions.
It does. It defines mental health, realizing potential, coping with stress, working productively, contributing to community. While it doesn't detail specific mental health ethics in that section, just highlighting it underscores how values permeate all aspects of well-being.
Right. Okay, well, we've covered a lot of ground.
We really have.
So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway? We've gone from defining values, seeing their power, their role in administration, the dangers when they're absent.
Their evolution, the importance of value education, the inner dynamics with emotions and conscience.
And even looked at really tough ethical dilemmas like arms trade and climate change through this lens.
It really shows values aren't just lofty ideals, they're practical tools for navigating life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're the compass, as you said. So here's a final thought for you, the listener, to maybe chew on. If our values are always evolving, and if focusing too narrowly on, say, material success can cause so many problems for us in society, how might you redefine what a good life truly means? How could you shape it so it aligns with a broader, more holistic set of human values, benefiting not just yourself, but your community, maybe even the world?
That's a deep question worth some real reflection.